Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday, February 20th edition of the MMAOB Daily Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Adam Martin, and I'll be taking you guys through the latest in the world of mixed martial arts. A little bit of news to talk about today, guys. A couple of fighting announcements. Definitely somewhat big title fight coming up in the UFC. A few other fight announcements. One championship announced a bunch of fights, which is interesting, and Bellator announced a pretty good signing here. So let's get right into today's show. I'm going to start with a fight announcement. Usually I do this at the end, but I want to talk about this one because it is a pretty big fight. Valentina Shevchenko is returning to the octagon June 6th when she takes on Joanne Calderwood at UFC 251. The last few years, this pay-per-view in June has been in Chicago, and I'm kind of expecting it to be there as well. And of course, Valentina did fight in Chicago last year against Just Guy and knocked her with a brutal head kick. So it does make sense for this card to take place in Chicago for Valentina to return on it. And I'm expecting Valentina versus Joanne Calderwood to be the co-main event of this card. I expect I'm not sure what title fight's going to be in the main event. It's hard to say at this point because they're still kind of working out the schedule, but definitely potentially it could be Stipe versus DC, possibly. I doubt it's Jones and Usman. I think they're going to be fighting in July. Connor's probably going to fight at some other point. So yeah, I mean the heavyweight title fight's definitely a possibility. Maybe Israel Adesanya if he can get through Yoel quickly, although I doubt that's going to be what happens there. Cejudo's obviously booked. I don't know. It's hard to say. Maybe the featherweight title fight could be Volkanovski, possibly if he's healthy enough to return in June. So, anyways, I'll speculate on that at some other point. But I do want to talk about this fight first. Shevchenko versus Calderwood. And honestly, it looks like another fight that Valentina is going to be a massive favorite for. And it's hard to blame the odds makers if they do open her as like a minus 1,000 favorite once again. I mean, she's just on a rampage right now at flyweight. 5-0 since dropping down to flyweight. Just coming off a really nice win over Chukagian, smashed her on the ground, took her down crucifix position, just raining down elbows and punches, got the win there. She won the title, the vacant belt against Joanne Jacek at UFC 231 in December 2018. Since then, defended it 3 times in dominating fashion against Chukagian and Liz Carmouche. So she's looked great, and I just don't see anyone beating her really in this division. I think her only challenges are really at 135, where, of course, Amanda Nunes is her greatest challenge, but there could potentially be other fights there. Calderwood, I will say this, stylistically, this is an interesting fight because she is a striker, and the fight's probably going to take place in the feet. But the fact that she just lost to Chukagian last year on that same card again in Chicago last year, the one I got knocked out on by Shevchenko, Joanne Calderwood lost on that card to Caitlin Chukagian, who didn't look very good against Valentina. I know MMA doesn't always work, but this is someone who's kind of struggled a little bit since dropping down to flyweight, or moving up to flyweight, I should say. She is at flyweight 3-1 since moving down. So I wouldn't say struggled, but her wins aren't that great. I mean, Lipsky is not a great fighter. Faria is not in the UFC anymore. Andrea Lee's a decent win, but it was a split decision. There's been nothing in Joanne Calderwood's game that says to me she's going to go in there and beat Valentina Shevchenko. I don't see her giving her much of a chance, to be honest with you. Hopefully she's durable enough where the fight does go a little bit longer and a little bit more competitive than the last fight with Chukagian, but I just can't see it happening. I think Valentina swoops the floor with her once again. And it's not really Valentina's fault. There's just not that much competition right now in this division. It's Valentina's division, guys. That's what it is. And, these fighters she's fighting are just basically placeholders until Valentina eventually moves back up to 135. Kevin Scott, Volkanovski, Jones, Stipe, Nunes, the only other champs currently not booked. Yeah, I'm thinking it's probably Volkanovski, Kevin. That'd be interesting, right? If Amanda Nunes fights someone on that card, and then you have Valentina's co-main event. That does make sense. Jones will not be fighting the card. I doubt it. I think he'll fight an international fight against Jan or Reyes. And then Stipe, maybe they just do that fight in the summer with DC. I really have no idea what's going on with those guys. It's kind of annoying, right? Like, we just want to see the heavyweight title fight. That could be the fight, though, but the one I'm thinking about probably Volkanovski, or you mentioned Nunes. That does make sense, too. But, yeah, I definitely expect Valentina versus Joanne to be co-main event on that card, not main event. All right, let's get into some other news here. Don Cerrone said yesterday on his Instagram he's hoping to return to March or April. I mean, this guy's crazy. He just got knocked out by McGregor last month. He was medically suspended for 6 months for orbital and nose fractures, if I'm not mistaken, and he still wants to come back soon. The guy's a nutcase, but we all love him. I don't know, man. I think he should need to take some more time off. The UFC should really, push him to really rest up here. I can't blame the guy for wanting to get back in there, especially after we saw his purse wasn't very high. I think it was only 200,000. Probably getting bonuses, but still, I mean, it wasn't very good for that card. Like considering how much money the UFC made, how much Conor made. I can't blame the guy for wanting to come back, fight soon, and make a paycheck. But at the same time, I mean, March is in 2 weeks. Like, there's no way in hell he should be fighting then. And then April, most of those cards are booked up. Don't think that's going to happen. You know, it's hard to say what's going to be next for him too, because really, like, if you look at his losses, you got to be fair, Donald. Like, you lost to McGregor, you lost to Ferguson, you lost to Gaethje, 3 of the top 5 guys in the world. So we got to give him some credit there at least. But he has been losing in bad fashion, like by TKO, all 3 of those fights. It's not like these were close decisions. He's getting beat up and getting finished. So that does scare me a bit. I think he needs to take some more time off. I mean, come back in the summer or something like that. I don't think March or April is very realistic. We'll see if the UFC gives him what he wants. He's obviously known for being extremely active. He's the most active fighter in the UFC history. He fights more often than anyone in UFC history. But at this point, I mean, after 3 straight TKO losses, and I think he's 37 now, he needs to take a break, man. Really, he does. Just, you know, enjoy your time with your family, man, and come back later. But again, he probably just wants to make some money, and you can't blame him for that. You can't fault the guy for wanting to make money. It's just that sometimes the UFC's got to step in and kind of help these guys when they're just being too anxious to get back in the octagon after a beating like the last fight where he got knocked out in brutal fashion by McGregor. Dustin Poirier, he's also hoping to come back. He wants to come back in May now. I mean, he's been trying to get back a fight for a while now. He has not fought since last September when he fought Khabib. So it's been a while since Poirier's fought. He was choked out in that fight. It's not like he got, you know, knocked out or something. He's just taking a lot of time off and cleared his mind, I guess. He wanted to fight Nate Diaz. That's not going to happen. So it's hard to say at this point who's going to be. But Quinta does make sense. Maybe if he moves to 170, there's some new matchups there for Poirier as well. Poirier, before the Khabib fight, had a 6-fight unbeaten streak, including a nice win over Max Holloway, which is huge, obviously, and some other big wins in there too. So the guy's a beast. He's a great fighter. Gaethje knocked out as well. I mean, Anthony Pettis, Jim Miller beat. Like, he had a really good win streak there. But you know, the division right now is a little bit different than it was a year ago when you didn't have Conor, and now that Conor's back in the picture, Poirier's kind of been knocked out of that title rung for the time being. So that's kind of why he's, I think, thinking about moving to 170, where it's kind of a fresh start. But I think 155 is probably the best home for him. I think Quinta is a good kind of bounce back fight for him. It's not an easy fight, but it's definitely a winnable fight. He is higher ranked than Quinta, so that kind of throws a wrench in it. But, you know, unless he wants to take Justin Gaethje, which I think is a good fight, good rematch, I can't really see any other matches really making sense at 155. So maybe it's 170, not sure, but it is nice to see Poirier want to come back. I know a little, like maybe 2 weeks ago, he was talking about the Nate Diaz thing. He said he was offered for, I can't remember what card it was, but he said there's a show in California. I think it was in May. Not sure if that's a pay-per-view or if that's going to be a fight night card in California, but potentially that could be a fight night card where he headlines or even a pay-per-view just on. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's good to see Poirier back. Very exciting fighter. Jorge Masvidal says he'll fight Khabib Nurmagomedov for the right offer. Basically, he says that cutting down to 155 is just really hard for him at this point. He needs IVs to cut down. He's not able to do that anymore. But he says for the right offer, he would, you know, basically train harder and cut the weight differently. I don't see this fight happening, but it would be an interesting fight if it ever happened. And, you know, it's unfortunate Masvidal was not able to stay at 155, I guess, because this would have been a really intriguing fight. But hey, you know what? He kind of grew out of the weight class. And again, he says he can't do it without IV. So sports changed from when it was a few years ago. And honestly, Masvidal looks so good at 170. Why would he even move back down? I will say it's an intriguing fight, though, if it does happen. And, you know, most people would obviously pick Khabib there, but Masvidal is very good wrestling and a very good striker. So it'd be very interesting as well. Let's get some questions here. Consider Rodoji. Valentina about to break a defense record from female fighters with these defenses. Not her fault. The other girls ain't her level. She can't get alien species better skills somewhere. That's funny. Yeah, Amanda Nunes, Ronda Rousey, I think, has the record right now, if I'm not mistaken. Let me go double check Ronda's record here. Ronda had in female divisions, you didn't say what division, obviously flyweight, you know, it's her record to break because she's the only champ there. UFC record, Ronda Rousey has 6 defenses of the title, so of the women's bantamweight title, and then Amanda Nunes has, let's see here, 1, 2, 5. Okay, so Ronda right now is the record. I think Amanda Nunes probably gets that record at some point, but yeah, Ronda right now is the record. But you're right, Kenshiro. There's no way that anyone beats Valentina at 125. I can't see it happening, man. There's just no one out there. I mean, Joanne Calderwood, again, you know, decent fighter, stylistically a decent matchup for her, but because she's a striker, but still. Kevin Scott. How about May 2 in Oklahoma City for a Cowboy Pettis rematch as that Fight Night main event? That could be an interesting fight, actually. We saw them fight a few years ago. Actually, it was back in like 2011, 2012 now. Pettis knocked out Cowboy with a body kick. And yeah, it'd be an interesting rematch. And they could do that at 170 too, actually, because Pettis is kind of bounced back there as well. That'd be an interesting fight. Kevin Scott, Valentina's reign is fun. Remember, nobody could ever dream about beating Ronda until they did. Joanna wasn't beatable too until she wasn't. It's just how the sport goes sometimes. Yeah. I mean, it's okay, but the last fight, honestly, I was kind of bored by the last fight. I just didn't see Kagan giving her a chance to even be competitive, and she wasn't. So hopefully Joanne Calderwood is a little bit more competitive, but I just don't see that happening. And Kitsura Juju thinks that Valentina breaks in through her title defenses. That's possible for sure. All right. Here's a pretty good signing here. Bellator signed Ross Houston, who's actually a really good prospect from Cage Warriors, former Cage Warriors welterweight champion. Really nice signing here by Bellator. He was released by Cage Warriors, mutual release a few weeks ago. He hasn't fought since last June, where he had this crazy fight with Nicholas Dalby. The canvas was so bloody that the referee had to stop the fight because both guys couldn't even stand on the canvas. It was so slippery, which is crazy, right? But yeah, this guy's been fighting since 2016. He's 8-0 and won no contest in his career, hasn't lost yet. A lot of his wins are by decision, but he does have a couple finishes. He did win the Cage Warriors welterweight title over Stefano Paterno in October 2018. Didn't have a successful title defense, but only had one chance against Dalby. Dalby signed with the UFC after that fight. I'm a little surprised Houston didn't go to the UFC as well, but I think that Bellator is a good spot for him because they do so many events in Europe, and this guy could really be someone they build around. He is from Scotland. He's very popular in that part of the world, and I think that he'll probably headline one of these Bellator European Series cards. Makes a lot of sense for him personally, and I'm sure they're paying him really well. So good for this guy. I'm not sure who he's going to fight in his debut. They'll probably give him I don't want to say it, but they'll probably give him a can in his debut. I mean, they do that a lot for these European guys. They match them up with really, fighters that aren't in their, basically, they aren't at the same level. Like, look at Michael Page's last couple fights. That's kind of what I expect here for Ross Houston. But yeah, this guy could be a big star for them in Europe for sure. Couple fight announcements here. UFC Lincoln gets a heavyweight bout. Raphael Pessoa against Alexander Romanov. Heard some good things about this Alexander Romanov guy. Let's take a look at him here. Alexander Romanov, MMA. There's a hockey player named Alexander Romanov as well. But the MMA fighter, he's 11-0, 29 years old. He's from Moldova. And looking at his record here, he has not lost since debuting in 2016. As far as notable wins goes, I guess the only notable real win he has is Virgil Zwicker, who's a former Bellator fighter and Strikeforce fighter. He did finish him in 2018. All his wins are by stoppage, actually. So really good prospect for what I'm looking at. I need to see tape on this guy. I'll admit I haven't seen tape on him yet, so can't really give a scouting report right now. But from what I've heard, he's a very good prospect. And again, the record says it all. He does have a couple of Ezekiel chokes as well. So this guy's very dangerous, clearly. Raphael Pessoa, 10-1 in the UFC, or excuse me, in MMA, and he's 1-1 in the UFC. He lost to Cyril Gahn in his debut. Tough loss, obviously, against a beast like that. And then he beat Jeff Hughes in his last fight, which is obviously a pretty good win. Jeff Hughes at one point was a good prospect. So I'm expecting Romanov to be favored. I need to see some tape on this guy before I give you guys an opinion about him. But from what I'm reading, it means definitely got a good record. I mentioned that one championship announced a bunch of fights. So I've already talked about this one, but Demetrius Johnson's next fight against Adrian Moraes, that's coming up soon. And Eddie Alvarez also had his fight announced. I already talked about the Demetrius Johnson fight, so I don't want to get back into that one. But the Eddie Alvarez fight was just announced. He's going to be fighting this guy named Saygid Guseyn Arslanaliev. Again, I'll admit I don't really know much about this guy either, but let's take a look at him right now. Sherdog, 8-2, 25 years old, Russian fighter. Okay, he's coming off a loss to Christian Lee, who's a very popular fighter there. He does actually have a nice knockout win over Timothy Nasty Yukin, who actually just knocked out Eddie Alvarez. So that's a really good win for him, obviously. Nasty Yukin is a very dangerous fighter, as we know. And just looking at his record, a lot of his wins have come in one championship. So an experienced fighter there. Also has a win over Amir Khan. Not that Amir Khan, a different one. But yeah, I mean, this guy's a good record for sure. And then Eddie Alvarez, what else can I say? I mean, this guy is a stud. He's one of the greatest lightweights of all time. Since joining one, he is 1-1. Knockout loss to Timothy Nasty Yukin. Kind of a surprise there. Last March. It's been almost a year, crazy enough. And then he beat Edward Folyang, which was a solid win for him via submission. Yeah, I mean, you got to favor Eddie Alvarez, but at the same time, I mean, if he's going to be a huge favorite again, like I don't think it's going to be worth betting on. And Eddie Alvarez is a guy who bets on his fights himself, so I think even he'd tell you don't bet on this fight at minus 1,000 odds. Well, I'd hope he'd tell you that because this Saygid guy is definitely a dangerous fighter from what I can see here. So, yeah, I'll have to read more about him. I don't know a ton about him. One championship's definitely not my forte. Follow a little bit, but definitely not as much as UFC or Bellator, obviously, or PFL. But yeah, definitely an interesting fight there. Let's see what else I got here. What other news is out there today? Well, the press conference yesterday for Wilder and Fury was pretty crazy. They're both going at it, pushing each other. It's for show, obviously. But yeah, that fight's going to be sick, guys, this weekend. And let's see what the odds are now. They were pretty close the other day with Fury's a small underdog. Let's take a look at that. And also, I should mention James Haskell, the rugby star, has signed with Bellator, as we know, and now his debut's been confirmed with Bellator London. And as far as the odds go for that fight, it is Deontay Wilder's still the favorite, minus 120, Fury plus 100. So you can still get plus money on Tyson Fury. I kind of lean towards him, but I don't think that's a fight I want to bet on personally. I think it can go either way. Henry Cejudo apologized for his not Aunt Jemima comment, but Al Jemima comment, which obviously has a racist connotation to it. I'm not convinced he said it to be racist on purpose. I just think he didn't really know. He's apologized for it. Karen Bryant, who's a UFC broadcaster, she called him out on it. It was a stupid thing for him to write, but at the same time, I really don't think he was trying to be racist. I think he's just trying to be cringy, and I'm not convinced that Henry Cejudo is racist by any means. I think he's just trying to generate attention with his tweets and his photos and all this stuff. The guy's kind of a joker. In this case, I think he just didn't understand that what he wrote was potentially racist comment, and obviously some people were very bothered by it. So good for him to at least apologize, though. A lot of guys wouldn't have said anything, but that's good that he did say something. Pedro Munoz, he's looking for a fight. Hasn't fought since last June. He fought Aljamain Sterling, who I just mentioned. He wants to fight either Guy Faber or Frankie Edgar. I mean, I guess those fights make sense. I would assume that Munoz wanted someone ranked high, but I guess he just wants to fight at this point. I know Ryan Hall was calling out. I don't know what happened there. And that's what it. Brent Primus looking at free agency. No, we already knew that, I think, because he doesn't get any fights in Bellator. It's going to see if anything else changed as far as the odds go, but here. Let's see. Okay, Montgomery comments here. 3 fight cards, 1 weekend. I mean, arguably 4. You got 2 Bellator cards, 1 UFC, and then the boxing card. So 3 MMA cards, like you said, and then 1 UFC card, or 1 boxing card, excuse me. Kevin Scott, if you're going to bet that fight, it's either Wilder by a KO or Fury by decision or another draw. Yeah, I mean, if you bet on a draw, it'd be interesting, right? Kevin Scott, who is a racist, just a dork. Montgomery Whitmore, as a black man, I will say Henry wasn't racist. It's called dark humor. I'm with you on that one, man. I don't think he was either, but in this day and age, you kind of got to be careful what you write on social media for sure. And in this case, there are some racist connotations, I guess, to what he said. But again, I'm glad that you just at least apologized and we can all move on from this. I think that Karen Bryant maybe got a little too offended by it, but again, it's something that wouldn't affect me personally. Although I'm seeing what you're saying, Montgomery, save the racist card for actual racist comments. Yeah, I'm with you on that too, man. I think we'll definitely get a little too offended these days, and then when something actually happens, they're still offended just the same. It's crazy. Like I said, just looking at the odds right now, nothing's really changed. No new odds out. Myself and Cole Shelby broke down that card on Tuesday, so definitely go back and check it out. Cole picked a lot of dogs. I picked a few as well. It's going to be a good card this weekend. I'm excited for it, guys. UFC on ESPN plus 26, Felder versus Hooker. I saw the stare down. Looked really good. Saw the stare down on Crude and Alexiak. That looks like a good fight, too. Both guys very, very big light heavyweights. This should be a good one. And I think that's going to be it. All right, guys. So that's it for today's show. But I'll be back tomorrow for the Friday edition of the podcast, which should be good as always. Once again, I appreciate the comments, guys. I love having the comments and answering questions. So in the meantime, follow me on Twitter at MMAdamMartin. And you guys can also check me out at bjpen.com, MMAOddsbreaker.com, and MMAratings.net. Once again, guys, appreciate the support. I really do. Have a good one, guys. I'll be back tomorrow. Bye.